other organization, so they don't even show up on the books. We have thousands of people in Iraq today that are being sent in by private corporations this way that aren't on our military books. If they die, they're not included in the statistics. When they kill people, those people aren't included in the statistics. They're not in the budgets for the military, and they're not prohibited from doing the things that our military is prohibited by law from doing, such as torture. They're doing it, and they do it as private contractors. It's a huge business. Most of them came out of our military. They came out of Ranger units, Special Forces units. They're owned by and run by those people. Some of them came out of those kinds of units in other countries, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, England, France, but a lot of them come out of our own military.
Yeah, I know with Halliburton, one of your former company's competitors, they have numerous offshore holdings that they like to transfer their profits to, as well as of several months ago, the number of Halliburton employees who had been killed in Iraq was, I believe, at about 45. And that's not something you read about in the papers.
Right, and those are Halliburton employees. There's a lot of other people who work for Halliburton that wouldn't be classified as employees, that don't even make those kinds of statistics. And that's true in the industry, as is bribing. You know, great subject, bribing, because there's a number of newspaper articles out now about the fact that funds are unaccounted for. There's been scandals over the fact that a company like Halliburton or Bechtel or any of these companies that they spent $1 million for fuel or Coca-Cola or something else when they really should have only spent $600,000. You know, there's that kind of thing. And I think a lot of people, when they read an article like that, they say, my God, well, I guess somebody in one of these companies was making $400,000 then by cheating the company, his own company. I mean, I wonder, you know, what people do think. Whereas to me, it's very obvious. These kinds of monies are being used as bribes. This is as old as history. Our companies are prohibited by law from bribing people outright. I can't go in and say, I want to win this contract, Mike, so, you know, here's $400,000. Make sure I get the contract. That's very illegal, and it's almost never done by U.S. companies. It is done by companies from other countries where it's not illegal or not as illegal. But our companies don't do that, and they pride themselves on their integrity for not doing that. Instead, what they do is they'll, if I want to bribe you, if you're president, I want to bribe you, I want to give you $400,000. I'll say, well, do you have a brother or a friend who owns the John Deere franchise in this country? And you say yes, and so I'll negotiate a deal with that person to rent his equipment. I'll rent $600,000 worth of his equipment, and I'll pay $1 million. And there's nothing illegal about that. I can always fall back and say, "Oh my God, I didn't know I could have got it for $600,000. I cut a bad deal. How stupid of me!" But it's obvious then that the side agreement is that extra $400,000 will go to you, the president. This happens all the time. At Charles T. Maine, our offices were filled with young men and women, but mainly men, from the countries where we worked, whose fathers were very high up in the governments. And we brought these young men in as interns at Charles T. Maine, paid them quite well, and in addition to that, we arranged for them to go to college in the United States, in Boston, at MIT or Harvard or Northeastern or BU or BC or wherever they could get in, and we could help them get in. We would usually give them a full scholarship or make sure they got one. We might pay for their housing and their food and give them a very nice salary as interns. So they might benefit to the tune of $50,000 a year, something along these lines, that really was a bribe to their parents, and yet there was nothing illegal about it. So much of this stuff that's done that is immoral, I think it's unethical, I think it really should be illegal, but the way it's done, it's legitimate, because the laws are written to protect this system, to protect what I call the corporatocracy, the big business, big banks, and government people who are running this empire.
Well, more and more it sounds like the laws are literally written by lobbyists from companies like the company that you worked for. Was there talk of that while you were in there, of tweaking legislation to create loopholes so your company could drive through those?
All of these companies have lobbyists in one form or another that are deeply involved in this. Some of the information that's come out at Vanity Fair and a number of other magazines did some and U.S. News and World Report did a very deep investigation of the Saudi relationship with our government back about a year ago. And one of the things they found was that billions of dollars had come from Saudi Arabia to pay for lobbyists and to pay off former CIA employees, government officials, congressmen, Pentagon officials. This was all documented in those magazines, and it's footnoted in my book. And if someone's looking for a reference, they can go directly to those magazines. Of course, it doesn't surprise me in the least bit, but it's a very, very corrupt system, and corruption can be done in extremely subtle ways.